Now, that doesn't make it Council Rock proud. I don't know what will. Young ladies and gentlemen, we're very proud of you. I'm proud of you, Mr. Simon.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman.
I will share a little secret that some of these folks know and some probably don't know. And that is that about a year and a half ago, a couple Decembers ago, I had the wonderful fortune of accompanying the Council Rock High School South Orchestra to the White House for a phenomenal performance down there. And what I said to the group at the time, what I said to Mr. Simon at the time was as true then as it is tonight. That was the single best day of my entire career. It's awesome, because I got to listen to this all day in the White House and see such outstanding young men and women representing the Council Rock School District, representing Council Rock High School South. Tremendous, tremendous job. Thank you so much. We're going to do our roll call and then hear a little bit more from this group.
Thank you, everybody. I am calling to order our regular school board meeting at the Council Rock School District for March. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I believe Jacqueline, is going to lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, Dr. Fraser, as you know, we're traveling to Spain in April, and we're going to be going to, besides Madrid, of course, the capital, Sevilla, Granada, and Toledo. And we have, a lot of our pieces have Spanish meaning. The first one was Scheherazade, which is reminiscent of Arabian Nights. 1001 Arabian Nights is a story that Scheherazade tells. And there's a castle called Alhambra in Granada where people go to and they talk about the Moorish architecture and the Arabic atmosphere. It makes them feel like they're in 1001 Arabian Nights. So we had to perform Scheherazade, and this other piece is called Malagueña, which is a dance typical from the region of Malaga, which is in southern Spain, right near where we'll be traveling. So here's Malagueña.
Thank you, everybody. Mr. Simon, that was fantastic. Wonderful. For the audience, I'm understanding it's going to take a few minutes to clear the room here, so we'll get started as soon as. Nobody else is going to get that, but I'm sorry, I gotta say this, except Denise and Mark, but we got Tiffany.
No, I got it. I got
We talked about Tiffany. If Jerry's listening. Sorry, I couldn't do it. Madam Secretary, may we go for a roll call?
Denise Brooks. Here. Marianne McKee. Here. Joe Hidalgo.
Here.
Kristen Marcel. Here. Ed Solomon.
Here.
Andy Block.
Here.
Mark Bialik.
Here.
Ed Tate.
Here.
Mike Thorwald.
Here.
What do you want to do?
Thank you, Dr. Free, for the room's yours. We did it pretty quickly.
Mr. Simon, we'll see you again tomorrow. We'll see you again tomorrow at the Pyramid Concert.
That's right, very good.
All right, calling our meeting back to order. I believe I saw Mr. Griesbaum somewhere.
Yes.
Mr. Griesbaum, Mr. Griesbaum. Oh, is Ms. McCarthy here? Oh, there you are. I didn't see you. There's a lot of people out there. It's a lot easier to see him. Welcome.
Thank you.
And that wasn't very nice, what you just said, by the way.
I didn't hear it.
You were sitting there.
I stopped wearing high heels a while back. I keep telling those who still are wearing them, they will too eventually. So we're happy to be here this evening. I would like to introduce, starting with 9th grade, Katie Daniels, 10th grade, Veda alum. Baruni Palium, 11th grade, Veda alum, and 12th grade, Jay Cohen.
Good evening. Tonight I will be covering the 9th grade class as well as the music and athletic programs. The 9th grade class officers have been working on their water bottle stickers for the International Rhino Foundation fundraiser, and our class is preparing for its incoming student government officer elections. Next, I'll cover just a bit of information about the winter season sports teams and the spring sports teams so far. Girls swimming finished their season with a 3rd place finish in the District 1 swim meet. 4 girls went on to compete in the state championship meet, with Abby Henderson, Ellie Bramberg, Julia Gorshko, and Jacqueline Rosenball winning medals. As a team, they finished 12th overall. The boys swim team had a great season as well, with Dominic Edwards, Zach Burbeck, Davis Wojnovic, and Blake Eshelman breaking records. The girls basketball team had a phenomenal season and advanced to the state quarterfinal playoff game, making them one of the 8 elite teams in the state. Wrestling also had several state tournament qualifiers, with Cam Robinson achieving the status of state runner-up, Kyle Hauserman coming in 3rd, and Luke Lucerne coming in 4th. Now to spring sports. Boys lacrosse is 4-0 in the preseason scrimmages. The season starts Friday at Abington. The boys tennis team has a new head coach with 13 returning and 13 new players. The team currently has a 2-2 record, with one of their losses to the state champions. Alex DiMidio, number 3 singles, has a 3-1 record, the best on the team so far, winning 2 set tiebreakers against Wissa Higgins, number 3 singles. Sierra North softball returns 9 girls from a team that was last year's district finalist and state qualifier. North softball is the only team in District 1 to qualify for back-to-back state playoffs. Varsity baseball has played 2 scrimmages, winning both. Spring track just had their first scrimmage, and the girls are off to a great start. They had a bunch of personal records broken, and we hope to see the times continue to go down throughout the season. Now for just a little bit of information about what the music program has been up to. The marching band went on their concert tour to Hawaii, with highlights including performing at Pearl Harbor, the Polynesian Cultural Center, and attending a clinic at the University of Hawaii. Our musicians also had the opportunity to climb Diamond Heard. Choir just had their spring concert, taking on the challenge of performing the difficult Shakespeare psalms. Choir is currently gearing up for Acapella at the Rock on March 30th, and will soon begin preparing for their Pyramid concert, featuring schools from the north side of the district. Orchestra is continuing preparation for their spring concerts. Many of those students are involved with the pit orchestra as well and are looking forward to the spring musical, Spamalot. So overall, the 9th grade class, sports teams, and music programs at North are doing great.
Good evening. My name is Bruni Polium, and I'm the 10th grade representative of Council Rock North Student Advisory Board. Even though we had just started speaking about CRN's bustling start of the school year activities at the last meeting, I am pleased to report that our extracurricular clubs have continued to initiate positive and impactful activities for the students in the community in this 2019 year. Just recently, the National English Honor Society collected over 1,000 children's books for the charity Cradles to Crayons, which serves to help families in poverty. Through this positive initiative, NEHS has greatly aided families in our community, helping bring education to the less fortunate. Additionally, Council Rock North Sock and Buskin is currently in rehearsal for their performances of Monty Python's Spamalot on May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The club is also hosting a one-act submission contest this March and will perform a student-written play this June. With regard to other extracurricular activities, our Future Business Leaders of America program, also known as FBLA, had 57 students qualify in regionals in order to further compete at the state level in Hershey from April 7th through the 10th. CRN's debate team has also had very high levels of success this year, in which multiple students will be competing at the National Speech and Debate Association's Nationals in Dallas, as well as PCFL Nationals in Milwaukee. Council Rock North has also continued to spread tolerance and positivity towards diversity, hosting a culture night in which students were able to research and represent a culture from around the world and present its food, music, and language. Additionally, many positive and inclusive activities have been held, allowing students to express themselves and feel welcomed in CRN's learning environment. In order to further promote diversity within our school, students, parents, and teachers have met and planned to conduct a survey of all students in order to ensure that all feel safe, valued, and heard. Speaking of plans for the upcoming year, Council Rock North is pleased to announce that it will be holding its first homecoming dance in the 2019-2020 year, ending a week full of fall festivities. Overall, the extracurricular activities at Council Rock North have had a very positive impact on the school and will continue to beneficially shape the educational experiences of students in the community. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Veda Alam, and I'm the Class of 2020 representative. Today, I will be talking to you about the junior class and academics. The junior class has been very busy planning several events. Our closest event is Junior Prom, which is on April 26th. The theme this year is Starry Night. Like years before, the prom will take place at the Princeton Hyatt. Everyone is very excited for prom as it's getting nearer and nearer. We cannot wait. Our class officers have also started planning a different format for the annual Fall Festival, which will take place in October. The Fall Festival this year will be shifting to a craft fair where local vendors and event potential entertainment will be present. CRN clubs and activities would also advertise at the fair for the whole community to see. This is a great way for the community to interact with activities at North. Believe it or not, it's that time of year where people are thinking about class elections for the next school year. The elections will take place in early May of next year in order to solidify our senior class officers. Now on to academics. Next Thursday, March 29th, is the annual Spring College Fair. Colleges from all over the country come to Council Rock North to enlighten the juniors about the college application process that is approaching us very soon. Students will get a good idea of the whole process and get to meet several ambassadors from schools of their choosing. There is also a 1-hour question and answer session before the fair actually begins, so students and parents can clarify any questions that they might have. The annual Keystone exams are also approaching in mid-May. Students take these state assessments in order to test the skills they have acquired from their respective classes. The Keystones are given are the Algebra 1 Keystone, Biology Keystone, and Literature Keystone. These Keystones give a good insight to the parents and educators as to exactly how much they have learned from these classes and also to see where they could improve. The Keystones are also good practice for future standardized testing. The stress is building up for the much dreaded AP exams. The AP exams are set to be the first 2 weeks of May, giving students the opportunity to earn college credits while still in high school. In fact, there are only approximately 5 weeks until the exams. AP teachers have been working very hard since the beginning of the year to ensure the students' success. Students have acquired various skills throughout the year, giving them the ability to earn potential college credit. The junior class and academics are both very busy at North right now. From prom to AP exams, juniors certainly have a mixed bag of emotions. Thank you, and we'll see you in May.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know about you, but I personally cannot believe that it's spring already, and that I only have less than 3 months left as a Council Rock student. However, this does not mean that my class of 2019 has been slowing down in any way. I have a lot to report to you all about the happenings in my grade and SEB, so let's begin. First, for SEB news, back on January 30th, SEB hosted its annual talent show, coined North's Got Talent, and we had an amazing turnout, and we raised over $2,100 for Kids Against Child Slavery. Our annual Rockathon is actually in a week from tomorrow on March 29th from 7 to 11 p.m. SEB has been hard at work running mini fundraisers at places like Chipotle, Green Straw, Chick-fil-A, Jules, and Nothing Bundt Cakes, and all to raise money for the Autism Cares Foundation. Ticket sales just started yesterday at all lunches, but I'm very happy to say that we've already raised over $5,000 for such an amazing cause. Following Rockathon, after the AP exam season, we'll be having SEB elections at a date that's to be determined. I'm personally very excited to see who runs because we have many amazing SEB members with amazing leadership potential to do great work in our community. Now on to senior class news. There's only 12 days left until our senior class trip to Disney World. Seniors are very, very, very excited to embark upon this trip of a lifetime, even if it means we have to wake up and report to school at 3 in the morning for the bus ride to the airport. Many of us have been working hard making restaurant reservations and booking fast passes, so clearly our strong work ethic has not yet succumbed to the lethargic disease of senioritis. Because the Disney trip is ultimately the only senior affair that can occupy my mind right now, it looks like I have covered all bases that I wanted to share with you all tonight. I cannot wait to report back to you on how Disney went, and I'm very excited to update everyone on how Rockathon goes in our next meeting. See you in May, and thank you.
Jake, you got a choice yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'll let you know next meeting.
All right. Well, I won't be here in May, so I just wanted to say good luck to you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Watching you grow up over the last 4 years.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Nice job. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. McCarthy and Mr. Griesbaum.
Yep, great stuff happening at CRN as well.
Yep.
Very proud of y'all. Thank you.
Dr. Frazier will take the superintendent report, please.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Block. Good evening, members of the board, members of our Council Rock community. We are going to start with a series of presentations. And I see our Council Rock art teachers in attendance. I see many of our building principals in attendance. And I have a feeling that we have a number of our student artists out there in the audience as well. So that must mean that it's time for Gallery at the Rock and to recognize our Chancellor Center art collection. So Mrs. Beth Lynch, I'll introduce you. Mrs. Lynch is our visual arts coordinator for the district, and Mr. Block and I will come down to help shake some hands.
Excellent, thank you. Before we begin, you can stay cozy for a couple minutes if you want.
So.
I am going to ask Ms. Hayden to come up and say a few words before we start talking with our students.
I don't wear high heels anymore either. Hi and good evening. My name is Lynn Hayden, and I'm the Art Department Coordinator at Council Rock North, and I am here speaking on behalf of the 75 members of the National Art Honor Society. Council Rock North is proud to host this year's District Art Show on May 31st and June 1st, 2019. Additionally, we are hosting a color run on Saturday, June 1st at 9 a.m. on our track. We invite all Council Rock families and community members to join us for this event. Your ticket to the event is the purchase of your District Art Show t-shirt. Order forms and all details can be found on our district website. All proceeds support the Catherine Maynard Scholarship Fund and our student artists. So thank you.
Thank you. So just as a side note, even though this wasn't part of my presentation, through the art show alone last year, we were able to raise close to $7,000 for our scholarship fund, which went right back to our Council Rock students. So please come out and support the art show and our students.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm just going to butt in for a minute because I'm going to tell you that show is fabulous. Where is the color run taking place?
It is on the track. It is going to be spectacular at North.
Nice.
You should come out, wear all white and get
Pretty good
just
business
splash of
model you all
color.
developed there. Good work.
We can share if you want. I'm willing to share our business model. Just saying. On another note, good evening. I am honored to be here tonight along with our entire team of Council Rock art teachers. We are here to honor our students who have work representing their school in either the Chancellor Center collection or the Gallery at the Rock. Both of these collections serve as extremely high honors for our student artists. Only one student from each building is chosen to represent their school each year. So congratulations to the 30 students we are honoring tonight. Your art teachers are extremely proud of you. We additionally would like to thank the principals and all the family members who are out here joining us tonight to celebrate our accomplishments. Before we begin our certificate ceremony, I would like to spend a minute highlighting to our young artists and our community how important the arts are in today's society. And I would like to do this by sharing a few numbers with you. 175,572. That's the number of jobs in Pennsylvania alone that are directly related to the arts. 763.6 billion. That is the amount of dollars the arts contributed to the U.S. economy in 2017. Good business model, just saying. 45,612. The combined number of days our Council Rock art teachers have spent in our classrooms, instilling a passion, a love of art, and a fundamental set of art skills in our children. 10,841. The current amount of students in Council Rock who are being prepared in a meaningful and exciting way to weave art in their futures. 1. This represents each of our children because each and every single child is an artist. Everyone has a significant perspective on the world that is important to share. And lastly, 15. The amount of art teachers I surveyed to ask them why they are proud of our Council Rock art students. And here's what a few shared. I am proud of their hard work, their kind hearts, and their ever-expanding views of the world. They amaze me. I am proud of their kindness, their enthusiasm, and their hard work. I am proud when I watch my students overcome challenging aspects of a project. I am proud when my students show me their work with a huge smile, knowing that they succeeded in making their creativity come to life. And lastly, I am proud of everything my students do. Being an artist is about much more than just what happens in our classrooms. It is about the connections we make, the lives we impact with our work, and the positive change we can inspire in the world. And with that said, at this time, we would like to recognize our outstanding artists who are in the room tonight. So I would ask as we do this, if one art teacher from each school would come forward when Mr. Block and Dr. Frazier recognize your children. If the principals are in the room tonight, I would also ask that you come forward to join us in honoring your students. The way we're going to work is each school has 2 students here tonight, one with artwork in the Chancellor Center collection. This is an honor one child gets each school year. Their artwork is framed and resides on the back wall of the Chancellor Center for an entire year. The second student who is going to be called forward is representing their school in the Gallery at the Rock, which is a traveling art gallery we received the Council Rock Education Foundation grant to fund. It travels throughout our community, throughout our school buildings, and additionally to our administration building. And this evening, it is on display in the lobby if you'd like to take a look. Okay, here we go, the fun part. These are for you. You're welcome. We're going to start with Churchville Elementary. And first, I would like to call forward Ella Doherty. Ella, stop right there and see the picture real quick. And parents, we're going to put all of these pictures on the website so you'll get a chance to see them. And also from Churchville, Gianna Littig. and we are going to ask our student artists to stay in the front. So Ella, can I have you come back up here, please? From Goodnoe Elementary, we have Matilda Anteo. Matilda, can you come back for a picture? Right here, right here, right here, right here. And Nora Eder. From Hillcrest Elementary, we have Andy Spolsky. And Dale Dye. For Holland Elementary, we have Ari Golubstov. And Taylor Wilkinson. Up next, we have Maureen M. Welsh, Ashley Elmore. And Connor Kearney. Up next, we have Newtown Elementary School. Cole Freeman. And Heather Shue. Thank you. Richboro Elementary School, Kaylin Loftus. And Sean Morgan. Rolling Hills Elementary School, Valerie Krasnopolsky. and Sophia Bazar-Baeva. Bristol Finestone Elementary School. Madison Ritter. And Samantha Jablonski. For Wrightstown Elementary School, Connor Dvorak. And Eva Novik. Holland Middle School, we have Isabel Schlemmer. And Will Sheffo. Newtown Middle School, we have Hannah Weiss. And Jessica Yuan.
Mom, did you get it? Sure?
This is your moment in the light. You should enjoy it. Richboro Middle School, we have Danya Salchi. And Patrick Duffy. For Council Rock High School North, Megan Hayes Fisher. And Claudia Talton. And for Council Rock South, Paige O'Connell. Yay! And Davika Dewan. And at this time, before I open it up for pictures, I would just like one more time to say thank you to all of the art teachers who spend all of your days. I forget the number of days. It was somewhere over 25,000 days in the classrooms with our students. It's obvious the kids of Council Rock love art, and we're doing amazing things together as a team. So thank you. And thank you to all the principals. Now, moms and dads, the floor is yours. Enjoy. Kids, this is what it feels like to be famous. Enjoy the flash. I love it. Thank you. Thanks for giving us the floor. I appreciate it. You're not laying low when I'm on. I don't lay anything low. Nothing. Okay. Do I? I know. Okay, good. That's a good question. I know that part. I was assuming it was good.
Will you do the rest of your back up? Back up. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So nice to meet you. Your daughter's just lovely. Wait till you see
Thank you. All right. Look for goodies.
You're so fun.
One more.
Say what?
Okay, thanks everyone. If you are staying, I'll ask you to take a seat, please, so that we may continue. And if you are taking off for the evening, good for you. And we'll ask you to start making your way out of the room at this time, please. All right, thank you, everyone. I am going to quickly, before we move on to our next presentation, piggyback off of something that Mrs. Lynch said. And, you know, as she talked about the statistics around art, the careers that are out there, the impact that's made, and then we hear this difference between STEM and STEAM. This is why our district approach is one of STEAM. Because that right-brainedness, that creativity to go along with the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that's the total package. And I could never say it half as well as what she just did, but that is a huge part of the why behind us being a STEAM district as opposed to simply a STEM district. So moving on to our next presentation, we have a couple of our staff members this time that we want to recognize, and very, very impressive awards won at the state level in the sport of wrestling. And before I ask their athletic director, Scott Lair, to come up, I am going to apologize to these two gentlemen because I do recognize that tonight is the first night of NCAA Nationals. Mr. Silverperry, you got it streaming? All right. Well, I wasn't going to go there, but yes, in the great city of Pittsburgh to boot. So very, very impressive work. I'm going to introduce Council Rock High School South Assistant Principal and Athletic Director, Mr. Scott Lair, to do a little introduction, and then to call these two very, very impressive gentlemen up. Thank you, Mr. Lair.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here this evening. I am very honored and privileged to be standing here. These two gentlemen, this is probably a very uncomfortable evening for them because they really don't like recognition. But just being in athletics for my entire life, what these two individuals, along with their coaching staff, have accomplished in their 17 years at our school has been phenomenal, impressive, and the numbers are staggering, absolutely staggering. I do not take credit for any of their accomplishments because I inherited them 3 years ago, okay, and I inherited a gem. And they know how I feel about them. We have conversations all the time, and we truly are blessed to have these gentlemen leading our young men and teaching our students as well at the high school. Just listen to a couple of these, well, these numbers, and I'll try to be brief. As a team, from 2003 to 2019, 14 sectional league championships, 10-time District 1 tournament champions, 6-time PIAA Southeast Regional champions, and they finished in the top 10 of the PIAA state championships 9 times as a team. That's in 17 years. Individually, for their individuals that have been fortunate enough to be under their tutelage, they have 173 sectional and league place winners, 70 sectional and league champions, 134 district place winners, 56 district champions, 91 regional place winners, 34 regional champions, sorry guys, 82 state qualifiers, 42 state place winners, and 9 state champions. And in 2005, they were the PIAA AAA state tournament champions. And this year, this past March, and I had the privilege of going up to Hershey wearing my Hawks wrestling sweat jacket, and I'm extremely proud to wear that when I go around the Giants Center. We sent 9 kids to the state tournament. There's only 14 weight classes, okay, in a wrestling match, in a wrestling program. 9 of them went to the state level, state championships. So, but to me, the numbers are great. They're amazing. But what's even more important is the type of individuals they are. And to me, that's the measure of a true man. And these men, along with their coaching staff, I thought about all the coaches in my life who I still keep in touch with, and I know they keep in touch with all their wrestlers, and I think about what are some of the things that they bring to the table every day. Well, they get their athletes to believe in themselves. They're great life teachers. They keep the game in perspective. They understand individual differences in athletes. They coach the person, not just the athlete. They're great communicators and they listen well. They walk the talk with their athletes. They model exemplary character every single day. They continually challenge their athletes to do better and push to the limit. They're passionate about what they do. They're empathetic and they are tuned into the feelings of their athletes. These two gentlemen were state champions themselves, so they know what it takes. And they're honest and they conduct themselves with the utmost integrity. So I am proud to call them, I know that I'm their supervisor, but they're my colleagues, okay, because we work hand in hand together. And my goal as the athletic director is for every student athlete to have a meaningful, enriching experience by being a part of our programs. And sometimes we're successful, we do a successful job and sometimes we don't, but we try to. I can honestly say that these guys go above and beyond and they meet that goal every single day. So I would like to call up Mr. Brad Sillenperry, Mr. Trap McCormick, because not only were they the Pennsylvania Wrestling Coaches Association coaches and assistant coaches of the year, they were the District 1 Coach of the Year and the Suburban 1 League Coach of the Year. So congratulations, men.
Okay, that sounds good. This first one. Bill. So just in time. Thanks.
All right, thanks so much. Congratulations, gentlemen. Congratulations, Council Rock High School South Athletic Department, Music Department, the whole 9 yards. I do appreciate everyone's patience as we work through these presentations this evening. At this point, we have a fantastic donation made to our Council Rock Education Foundation. And I am looking for Mrs. Acosta. Acosta? The CREF Executive Director. And this is a very nice donation. So congratulations to you. And we'll be sure to issue our thanks here in just a moment.
Great.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight is a very special night, as this is the largest gift that we've ever received at the Council Rock Education Foundation. And the proceeds of this gift will go to our K through 12 innovative STEAM projects all throughout the district. So on behalf of the Council Rock Education Foundation and all of our students, we're so very honored to accept this donation of $30,000 this evening from Fred Beans, Family of Dealerships, and John Kyle, the general manager from the dealership here in Newtown, is presenting us tonight with this check. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and our final superintendent report presentation for the evening is one of our student programs. It's called a SHARE program. It's presented, at least the focus of the presentation tonight, to our Achieve students. Which, if you don't know, is our 18 to 21-year-old population over at the Law School Admissions Council building. And we are very fortunate, to have this program, which is provided by NOVA, Network of Victim Assistance. And really, this is an incredibly valuable program that comes to us gratis because of generosity of our community. So at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Miss Mary Worthington from NOVA, who is going to update us and give us an overview of this wonderful program.
Thank you. Of course. Well, good evening. I'm here on this happy night with beautiful music, beautiful art, a $30,000 check, and now I'm going to be talking about healthy relationships. As many of you know, the Achieve program is a wonderful program, and Dr. Lambert can talk about that as well. For the last 4 years, NOVA has been going into the Achieve program to talk to them about things that really matter, some of the soft skills, but building healthy relationships. We all know that young people with developmental differences are at greater risk for victimization. Meta-analysis of research has proven this time and time again. I work for a victim service agency, and I can tell you they are at higher risk. So what I did was I worked on developing, with the approval of our executive director, a multi-session program for young adults, emerging adults with developmental differences, whether it's autism, developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities that are mild to high functioning. Because as your Achieve program talks about, these young people are going into the workplace. Their classroom now is in their workstations. And we're happy that Achieve welcomes us with open arms. And for 10 sessions out of the month or out of the year, we go into the Achieve classroom. And ironically, tomorrow is our last day for this session. But I want to tell you a little bit about the program. It is an hour with each group that we work with. And when I first met with John, we talked about that we need to have the higher functioning students because these are the students who are on social media. These are the students who want to be part of their friend group from the neurotypical kids. And these are the students who are out and about in the community. And they're starting to go into the workplace, whether it's St. Mary's or wherever it is, and they're meeting more and more people. When they're young, they were sheltered. When they were in the elementary school, the bathroom was contained in the classroom. And then slowly as they moved up, there was still guidance. But there's also a lot of compliance in these kids. We've taught them to be compliant, and understandably. But then when they meet somebody with ill intentions, what happens? So some of the topics we talk about are personal boundaries. We talk about the nuances of social etiquette. We talk about what's the difference between friend and friendly. We talk about attraction, dating, and serious relationships, because a lot of our young people in your Achieve program have feelings that they want to be in a romantic relationship. Some, never, they say, but many, some also say they want to get married. We talk about responsible sexual behavior. Now, we don't do this with all the students, but the students who are ready for this information, we talk about the laws of consent. We talk about statutory sexual assault, because we don't want them to be part of the judicial system where they've had the consequences of good intentions. And all of a sudden, they're charged with something and they didn't even recognize what they were being charged with. Another important lesson that we talk about is sexual harassment in the workplace, because if they're going out into the workplace, they need to know their rights if someone is inappropriate with them. And finally, we talk about safe internet use, because while not all of our young people with developmental differences are using social media, a lot of them are, or a lot of them are on gaming sites. And some even find their ways to photographs of inappropriate content. I want to read also some questions that these young people asked us, and I think they might surprise you. Their words, not mine. Why does someone try to manipulate another person? What makes a good friend? How do you decide to be in a relationship? What if you're attracted to someone's looks, but when you get to know them, their personality is not so great? Do real men cry? Does someone have to give gifts to get someone's attention? You are in a situation when someone wants to kiss you or something else. What do you do? And what if they sexually assault you? Why do victims blame themselves? Deep questions. So it shows the internal thinkings of these young people. And it is such an honor to work with them. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the internet has brought such a new dimension to risking for their safety. We had one student in this program who shared with us that a former classmate approached him and asked to FaceTime. Why, he asked? Because the former classmate wanted to see each room in that person's house. Big red flag. Another young woman who's in the program was on a social media platform, and a stranger commented that she was exquisite. The other thing that we do is we have an informational program before we start for parents and caregivers. We share with them what we provide in the program. And we also want to make a link to the information that we give in NOVA. We hope this spurs conversations with families and caregivers because these kids have deep questions. And lots of times people just think, oh, no, they'll never get married. They'll never want a relationship. This is our 4th year at Achieve, and we have the 2 groups, and we visit on every Friday. And last week, Achieve had an open house for the high school students in Council Rock who are moving to Achieve next year. And one of our students shared with me that they had just left and they were all dressed up. And he shared that he gave a tour. And he said, oh, it's Friday. It's Nova Friday. And he said it was such positivity. I don't know who's going to be more sad tomorrow, the students or me, but it's always a wonderful opportunity. We're all working to build a world that we all want to live in. And when I was filled with the music and the art and the awards and the check, it's all really, really positive. But I would also like to thank someone who has supported this program and underwritten this program. Her name is Bernadette Heenan. She's a former board member. She believes in this program, and she's my support system on this. So kudos and great thanks to her. And kudos and great thanks to you, because when I first made this program, Council Rock was the one who let me pilot it. And I'm so grateful, and I thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Mary, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you to the entirety of Nova. You're a difference maker.
Thank you.
The impact that you make is awesome. It's phenomenal. And
I saw 3 of your building principals. We do prevention education programs.
right, you do a whole lot of work with us in the district. Thank you so much. You too. A couple final and very important notes from me before I wrap up the superintendent's report. The first is that, as many of you know, if not all of you by this point, we did hold a safety and security community forum this past Tuesday evening. If you have not had a chance to see that yet, it is archived on our YouTube channel. I did send out an email earlier this evening to our community and to our staff with a summary of what Tuesday evening entailed, as well as links to that video. We had District Attorney Mr. Matt Weintraub there, which was fantastic. We had our local fire and police officials there, a couple of whom spoke to the partnership that we have together, and Mr. Brandon Rohn, who is a national certified Alice trainer, really was the highlight of the evening, in the sense that we devoted the most time to that topic, because it is critically important that all parents have an understanding of what Alice is and what Alice isn't. So as we said the other evening, our staff at this point has pretty much been trained. We only have a few remaining staff members that need to be trained. And within the next few weeks, we will begin engaging in conversations with our students, lessons with students. The lockdown drills that we conduct will look and feel a lot like the lockdown drills that we've always conducted, but we're going to supplement that then with this conversation about what Alice is, and just do it from a classroom teacher to student standpoint, and do that in a very age appropriate way. So please check that out if you have not yet had a chance to check that out. I also want to mention, as we did on Tuesday evening, the S2SS program, the Safe to Say Something program. We weren't quite sure how that program was going to go. I think there were a lot of folks who weren't quite sure. And I will tell you that in the Council Rock School District, I consider it a success, and we consider it a success. The system is being used. We are very grateful that the system is being used. It is in 99% of the cases being used appropriately, and it is allowing us to have information and to act on that information for the betterment of our students. And that is what it's all about. So I would encourage our students, I would encourage our parents, I would encourage our staff to continue to use that system. Every single tip that comes in is looked at thoroughly by numerous individuals, and then it's funneled into the right hands so that we can make sure that we investigate or have conversations or provide supports, connect with parents, and if the case warrants it, etc.
So S2SS has been a very good thing. Now, if you look on our website, it remains as one of our scrolling headlines up there, but there's also a designated link now on the left-hand side that will be permanent in nature. So a couple different ways to very easily understand what the system is, how to access it, use the app, use the hotline, etc. And I do want to thank Dr. Thorwart for nudging me a little bit to enhance that presence on our website. So that is very much appreciated. And again, things are going well in that regard.
Dr. Frazier, if I could just interrupt your report for a second to, on behalf of the board, congratulate and thank yourself, your entire team, specifically Mr. Taylor, Dr. Lambert, and also our peer Ed Tate, the folks who work on the Safety and Security Committee, Mr. Reich, who also presented. It's not easy to get up in front of a few hundred people and deliver a presentation. I thought you guys did a terrific job. We've gotten great feedback so far. For whoever hasn't heard it yet, it's on the Council Rock YouTube video. Can't tell you how proud I personally was of what you delivered, but more so what lies underneath it and what you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Block.
And I'll interject just while we're on safe to say, is it appropriate moving forward to get some statistics at these meetings?
We will be.
This may not be the time. And
I don't know that right now is the optimum time, but yeah, we'll absolutely be doing that as we move forward. Yeah, for sure. And lastly for me, on a sad note, unfortunately, on behalf of the Council Rock School District, I want to pay respect to Maura Dugan, who sadly passed away since our most recent board meeting. Maura was a Council Rock team member, one of our staff for over a decade, most recently serving as part of the clerical staff at Marina and Welsh. So on behalf of the school board and really on behalf of the entirety of the Council Rock School District, our deepest condolences are sent to Maura's family, Maura's friends, and I would ask at this time that you please pause with me for a moment of silence. Thank you. And that ends my report. Thank you, Mr. Block.
Thank you, Dr. Frazier. Mr. Cox, solicitor's report, please.
Mr. Block, I don't have anything to add to the report I circulated to the board earlier in the week. I'll announce that there was an executive session prior to tonight's meeting on a confidential student matter, and I expect that there will be an executive session following the meeting on 2 matters regarding potential litigation involving district construction projects and discussion of an application for a tax refund, which is permitted to occur in executive session under the local taxpayer bill of rights. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. With that, I'll move to our first round of public comment. Anybody in the room care to comment? I've got nobody on the list. Going once, going twice. Okay. Mr. Tate, could you please make a motion to approve the minutes of February 21st meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the, you said February 21st meeting.
Second.
Dr. Thorwart, any questions or comments? Any objections? Hearing none, I'd ask the secretary to note that the motion carries with unanimous consent. We're going to go to the Academic Standards Committee, but I'd like to note for the record, for the public now, that we are going to remove items F and G as listed on the current agenda. Ms. McKee?
Thank you, Mr. Block. The Academic Standards Committee met on February 28th. The report of the High School Scheduling Committee was presented to us. Just as a little background, the board was approached last year and expressed interest in examining our current high school schedule and the possibilities for improving that schedule, which would aid in the implementation of professional learning communities and adding some intervention and enrichment time for our students. So a committee was formed with representation from teachers, administration, parents, students, the board, And I especially want to thank Mr. Desko and Mr. Sanko, who were among the co-chairs of that committee and who led the work. The district also employed the services of Dr. Michael Reddick, who is really an expert in the field of scheduling. Over this period of time, the committee has met numerous times and conducted several site visits to various schools to consult with them about the ways they have addressed their scheduling needs. In summation, it was recommended to us to accept a schedule, an 8 AB block schedule with a unit lunch. Essentially, the main difference would be from our current schedule would be there would be fewer but longer classes for students per day, 4 as opposed to 6, and extending the current 55 minutes to somewhere between 82 and 86 with a 1 hour, we've called it lunch and learn, or we've called it a rock block. This would be a period for all students to have the opportunity, obviously, for lunch and socialization, but also provide time within their school day to meet with their teachers, to receive support or enrichment, to make up tests, to participate in clubs, to work with their classmates on projects. That time currently is not available within the school day. That's offered as twice a week outside of school. So there are many positives associated with this proposed schedule change. And I just really, again, want to commend the work of the committee. Their presentation was very thorough. It was well researched. And many of the arguments were quite compelling. However, there are still quite a few considerations to be worked through. But the board has agreed to go forward with the next steps, which would be a formation of subcommittees who could come back to us with further details about this implementation, possibly for the school year 2020-21 or 21-2022, depending on how those next steps and considerations are resolved. I would also just like to mention that our next Academic Standards Committee meeting is scheduled next week for March 28th, where we'll be looking at approval of new textbooks and an update on the second year of our technology plan. If there are no questions on my report, seeing none, I would then like to move to approve consent agenda items B through E as contained in the agenda.
Second. Thank you, Dr. Thorward. Any questions or comments? Any objections? Hearing none, I'd ask the secretary to note the motion passes with unanimous consent. And Ms. McKee, if I could have you read the motion for H, the school calendar revision, then we'll kick it over to Mr. Desko.
Thank you. I'd like to move to approve the updated 2018-19 school calendar, election day update as contained in this agenda. Second.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Mr. Desko.
So if you recall, when we passed the calendar for this year in January or February of last year, we identified the spring election day, which is May 21, as a potential makeup day should we experience weather issues early in the year. Again, with the concern of taking the school year too late into June, that we would find makeup days during the school year. So that day is a makeup day. However, because it is also an election day and the impact of voting in our elementary schools, we're recommending that we make the K-6 day an early dismissal day on May 21. So that we can lessen the impact at the elementary schools. We do not need to do that at the middle or the high schools. So before you is that calendar reflecting that change.
Thank you, Mr. Desko. Any questions for Mr. Desko?
I've got one, and it's a small one, Barry, but I've experienced those actually the last time I ran for election, half days. We have to be careful and mindful that the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and those bus loops, we have to be careful, can't be sacrosanct for people with, walking disabilities and such. So I would just ask that you're mindful of that and we have some contingency plans in place.
Yeah, and just so you know, and that's a good point, Mr. Thorward, but prior to us having that day off, it was an early dismissal day, typically on the primary election day. So we've experienced it in the past. So,
okay,
yep.
Good. That's all. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, I'd ask the secretary to note that this change to the calendar passes with unanimous consent, and we'll move to Ms. Brooks for an IU update, please. Oh, did I miss one?
Dr. Frazier?
Oh, you guys keep changing the paper on me. Sorry. Oh, it's a donation. It's a good night. All right, good deal.
Who's, this is you.
Don't you need a motion?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Mr. Bilek.
I move to approve the update, oh, I'm sorry, what we just did. Now I have to find.
Got us all.
I move to approve the donation of technology equipment as contained in this agenda.
Second. Thank you, Dr. Thorwald.
So this is a fantastic donation by the Holland Elementary School PTO in the amount of $18,471.66, all for Chromebooks, related technology with the Chromebooks going directly into the classroom. And in particular, we're always thankful and appreciative when we get these donations. This one, I just want to particularly mention that we've been saying with the redistricting process that we're all going to work together, and bridge communities and PTOs will be involved and so on and so forth. And this is an example of it, because the Hollandale population is increasing as a result of our redistricting program, and Hollandale felt this moral imperative. And sorry for looking over there at you, Mr. Solomon, but
I knew it was coming my way, Dr. Fraser.
So this is great because we have a lot of Hillcrest students who are moving in there to Holland, and it's important. It's important to all the school folks, both PTO based as well as staff based, that what has been at Hollandale from a technology ratio standpoint still will be with our incoming Hollandale students next year. And this donation in this substantive dollar amount will allow that to happen. So thank you.
May I?
Please.
Amen. Thank you. Prior to being appointed to the board, our team at Holland sat down and discussed redistricting in general. And one of the things that we've been doing over the last several years at Holland is getting to the front of technology with the Chromebooks in general. With redistricting, in the fall, receiving 80 some kids from Hillcrest, Mr. McClay and I were very concerned that the new kids, if you will, might not have the ratio, would augment or affect the ratio that we currently have there. This was something we proactively looked at months in advance. We waited for the final numbers to come out of redistricting and prep the board and the community for this purchase. So this was long in the making and deserving. Those kids are getting exactly what they deserve, and no one's going to miss a beat come September. And it's a great thing to be able to do for that community. Thanks.
Thank you to the HES PTO. I'm assuming there's no objections, and I would ask that the secretary note that the motion passes with unanimous consent. And with that, Ms. Brooks, take it away.
Thank you. So in addition to just regular IU board meetings, once a quarter, they convene an advocacy committee for education. They call it an ACE committee, where the superintendents, assistant superintendents, and representatives of all the school districts get together to talk about legislative issues, district-wide issues. Always helpful to hear about how everyone across the county is faring and how we compare and learn a lot of things. So last Friday we met, and the guest was Lawrence Feinberg. Many of us on the board may receive his legislative emails every day. He is the PSBA Advocacy Ambassador for Southeast Pennsylvania. So he serves as a liaison between the school directors and lawmakers, and basically just link school districts to the ongoing dialogue around public education. We talked about three general areas: school funding, charter schools, and pension. The charter schools are an interesting thing because specifically we talked about cyber charter schools, but charter schools in general are very challenging to how public schools are funded. But cyber charter schools pose a significant challenge because they're funded in the same way that brick and mortar schools are, even though they don't have any overhead. There are currently 15 cyber charter schools in Pennsylvania, and the total cyber charter tuition paid by taxpayers in Pennsylvania from 500 school districts was $454 million in 2017. So that is $454 million going to a cyber schools, taken away from the schools within our state. And interesting to note, I don't know if interesting is the right word actually, not one of the Pennsylvania cyber charter schools achieved a passing SPP score in any of the 5 years that the SPP has been in effect. So there's a lot of legislation in both the Senate and the House about changing charter school funding. So there was a lot of conversation about that. I think we'll be talking about that too. There's going to be, I talked about this last month, but I think it was just worth repeating that on April 29th, there's going to be a PSBA Advocacy Day in Harrisburg. It's a joint event with PSBA, the Pennsylvania Association of the IUs, and PASA, the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators, to basically strengthen the advocacy impact. There's no cost to attend this event. PSBA will assist any board member or administrator interested in scheduling appointments with legislators. There'll be a breakfast and briefings in the morning in Harrisburg, and then you'll get talking points to talk and directions on how to talk to legislators who might be involved in issues that you're particularly interested in. And then just because we've been so focused on safety issues, I thought it was worth pointing out one other topic that was discussed, which was on February 22nd, PDE issued an update, a brief update to Act 44, which is the school safety and security legislation and guides so much of what we're doing now. And this brief update caused some confusion across the state. It does not affect Council Rock, so that's good. But previously, many districts fulfilled security needs outlined in that law by employing security guards and arming them if they received training under Act 235, which is a 1975 law whose regulations provide for weapons training by state police, even if you're not a police officer. So it could be that the regulations could be read and had been read by many school districts in the state to support a school arming security guards who had gone through the training. But now this update explicitly states that arming that only school police officers can be armed, not security guards. And so there are a lot of districts in the state who are now trying to accommodate and change their situation because they had situations where security guards were carrying guns. So that's all I've got. Answer any questions.
May I just piggyback off that real quickly? What was that total amount again, statewide for cyber charter?
454 million.
Just let that sink in.
Yeah, right?
454 million. So you might be wondering what's our share? What's our number in Council Rock? Last year, it was over $482,000 that we spent on cyber charter costs. So as Mrs. Brooks had indicated, there are legislative bills out there right now on both the House side and the Senate side that essentially suggest that if the home district offers some semblance of a cyber program, then perhaps you won't need to pay for one of your student residents to attend a cyber charter school. Has to go through the legislative process, so we'll see. But I'll just put that in perspective. You know, Ms. McKee talked about the high school schedule. We know that there's a price tag to go with that high school schedule. This represents probably 25% of that cost. So all these pieces ultimately, fit together, and something certainly, Mrs. Brooks, as you said, that we're keeping our eye on.
Yeah, and also it was interesting because they passed out information and showed the all the districts in Bucks and their contributions. So Council Rocks was the lowest, but the highest was Ben Salem School District. 10% of their operating budget, 10% goes to charter schools. That's just mind-boggling. So anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So how many kids does that support, the $482,000 that we've had? I'm assuming it's the same cost per child as the ones that attend school? Or some kind of discount
There's
formula?
a cost differential. There's a cost differential based on regular education as opposed to special education. I am trying to pull up an email. I think I may have included that that information in last week's update to the board, and I have just found it. So that total is regular education students, and I'm not exactly sure how we get partials here, but there's 22.532 students. And that cost is $284,221. And then in addition to that, we have a handful, 5.173 special education students attending cyber charter schools, and that cost is $198,213. So obviously a bigger per student associated cost with a special education student, with a student with an IEP.
In what capacity will we be discussing this in the future?
Academic standards, probably. I mean, obviously it impacts finances, but I think the heart of the issue is first following it legislatively. I'll certainly be doing my level of outreach and asking the board and perhaps even asking the community on this one to do the same. So then it really becomes an exercise of within the academic arena, within the teaching and learning arena, for us to inventory what we currently have from an online program standpoint and what we could and maybe should have. I will tell the board I did not update you on this in the past couple updates just because we've been waiting on more information. But Dr. Elliott, Mr. Sanko, and I held a conference call with a school district in Delaware County 2 weeks ago, I guess that was 2 or 3 weeks ago, that they have developed a very robust cyber program. So that conversation really actually had nothing to do with the cyber piece. Just the cyber piece happens to give us that much more reason to consider going in that direction or some semblance of that direction. So yeah, I would think ACT standards.
And also, I'll just say that one of the things that happens when you're on the board of the IU is because these legislative issues are so thoroughly discussed, and then you're meeting with other board members. I have begun conversations with the president of the New Hope School, Solberry School Board about together, she and I reaching out to meet with legislators on these very topics. So it's, obviously representing Council Rock, but a lot of it is going to be an individual effort because all roads lead to Harrisburg on this one.
So I don't want to get in debate about this, but if I see you, Andy, if our current cost per child, so we have about 11,500 kids, is that about right? Or
11.8.
11.8, okay. So $250 million budget. So, and this is real just simple math. So we're at about 21,000 a student.
Okay.
Is that about right? So if students in our district are getting a proper education, appropriate education for less cost, is that not a good thing?
If kids are getting a better education,
An appropriate education.
here in Council Rock for less cost, is that a good thing? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So isn't that what I'm saying? So if our cost per student that comes through the district, the traditional student comes through the district, on average, I'm not splitting out special ed, I just took the 11,800 divided by.
Right.
Okay, so first of all, the calculation, it's not as simple as
I
that
understand,
math.
I said that.
But the point really is, for me at least, is that while this is not necessarily a tremendous issue in the district right now, we are not immune from a charter school trying to come in here and, take up space somewhere or something. So this is more about how philosophically and legally what the obligation is of school districts to fund students who don't go to our schools, who don't even necessarily go to charter schools in our districts and go, somebody who lives here could go to a charter school someplace else. So, we are fortunate to date, but we are not immune from the potential of what this could be.
Yeah, sure, I understand. Well, it's clear that, not to speak ill of Ben Salem, but we know that Council Rock is a better performing district in most areas than maybe Ben Salem is, right? Because, wouldn't you agree with that? Or no? You don't want to say that out loud. But if we looked at this, I'm sure if we looked at test scores, things like the measures we use, Council Rock would rank at a higher level, let's just say, than Ben Salem. So it could be that there's more cyber charter schools used in a district like Ben Salem than Council Rock for those reasons.
So we can have this another time.
Yes,
Charter
that's fine.
schools.
Sorry.
Charter schools exist to try to provide something in a community that some members of that community don't think they have or need. And there are things that can be presented in our area that could be very appealing to our community as well. It may not be in the area of academics. It could be in the arts or music or something more aggressive in science. And so it's just something to watch. I mean, a charter school is sort of the antithesis of what public education is in terms of how it's funded right now.
Yeah, this is a much bigger topic.
Can I suggest we move on?
Yes, please.
Ms. Marcel, can you please take MBIT and CREF together?
Yes, Mr. Block, I will have Ms. McKee help me with the MBIT
Excellent.
report. We'll both be doing that. But to start off with CREF, I wanted to start off with the duel, which was last Friday. Just wanted to thank so many people for that wonderful, wonderful event. I was so pleased to see so many board members and staff, faculty, retired teachers, or so many people that came out for that event within our community. And it was just really well done. I'd like to thank Ms. Acosta for all the work that she did in that area. It was a really fun night, and I look forward to attending next year. And then I just wanted to quickly thank the Fuge and Customers Bank, two really important sponsors for the event. There were a number of other event sponsors that we also wanted to thank, but I just wanted to give a special thank you to them. And then I also wanted to thank just a few more people, the donors, the attendees, and the volunteers that made the event happen. And then finally, a special thanks to the schools for the wonderful baskets that they donated and helped to put together. So that is the dual update. And then in terms of the Council Rock Golf Classic, there's going to be more information coming out this week. The tickets are actually going to start going on sale. It is June 3rd at the Philmont Country Club. I hope that everyone on the board will think about going, as well as many people in our community. Again, proceeds go to CREF's Innovative Spring Grant Awards and district-wide projects. And so this is really an important aspect of CREF. And then finally, I just want to share that the grant committee is hard at work reviewing the many applications that they received, and they're excited to share that it'll be an increase of up to $60,000 that they'll be able to give away and awarded to teachers and help support district-wide projects. That is my update for CREF. And then in terms of MBIT, Ms. McKee, would you like to start off?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Marcel. We attended the meeting together, so we'll tag team this. At our most recent MBIT meeting, we received an update on program development. MBIT is looking at expanding their network operating systems and security program to include a second teacher due to high enrollment. This is a good thing. The program has always been historically very popular and fully enrolled. They are predicting for next year an enrollment of 61 students. Full capacity is 44 students, hence the need for another teacher. Hiring another teacher and expanding this program would increase the career opportunities for these students in important industry areas like cybersecurity, cloud technology, hardware infrastructure. And I want to commend Dr. Fraser, who's been a special advocate in this area and encouraging the need for more engineering, for more teachers in this area and STEM fields. So thank you for that, Dr. Fraser. They would also like to explore the possibility at MBIT of starting a veterinarian technician program. So following a discussion with the superintendents about program offerings and enrollments, it was decided that the director of MBIT would conduct a student interest survey to see what programs students would like to see offered at Middle Bucks. And she was also asked to provide a list of the top 20 careers in Pennsylvania and evidence that veterinary technician is a high priority occupation in kind of an effort to sync up MBIT offerings with areas of employment opportunity. Ms. Marcel?
Thank you, Ms. McKee. MBIT, the Executive Council also had a presentation on the proposed capital projects that are being reviewed. That includes a roof replacement, HVAC units, exterior concrete work and asphalt work, and completing a study of the lintels. They also are considering the renovation of a welding lab, but that is now being considered as part of an overall program evaluation. As Ms. McKee mentioned, there are no decisions made. They're still in very preliminary stages and obtaining different evaluations and studies and things like that. And it would be completed over a 5-year time frame. So we'll continue to keep the board updated on that.
Thank you, Ms. McKee and Ms. Marcel. And with that, we will move to the Finance Committee. Mr. Bialik, please.
Sure, and I just want to say again that these reports from Ms. Marcel and Ms. McKee are so much more thorough than you and I ever did.
I was going to say the same thing, but I didn't go there.
We would just say,
You are very
want to
right.
take this?
You are absolutely right.
So I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, we had our last finance meeting on March 13th. We had two major discussion items. One was the budget presentation, the first draft. And I'm going to ask, you have something you want to talk about first in this report?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll provide a high-level overview,
And then we'll go to Mr. Stone about for some key points on the first draft of the budget.
Exactly. So that's what was presented at the most recent Finance Committee meeting, which was last Wednesday, was a first look at the budget. Understand the final approval of the budget won't happen until May 30th. So we are still a couple months out, and we probably have a couple months worth of work to do on this budget. We are showing a deficit. Mr. Stone will speak to that. And what I would tell you that as this budget currently stands, we are certainly in the position to maintain all existing educational programs. So what our students are used to today, our teachers are used to, our parents are used to, all of that stays. We have some security enhancements built in for all 14 of our schools. We have a new K-6 core mathematics program coming in next year, which is very exciting. Equally exciting is that we have the addition of a high school elective course on multicultural literature, which you heard from CRN this evening, this focus on diversity and inclusiveness. This is just one more step in that direction, a good step in that direction. Next year will be year 3 of implementation of our technology plan. Mrs. McKee had referenced earlier that next Thursday at ACT Standards, the board will hear about years 1 and 2. Elementary was last year, middle school this year, high school 2-to-1 Chromebook ratio at the high school. Also, from a technology standpoint, we are looking to make systemic our implementation and usage of a learning management system. Canvas is the one that is used largely in the district, but we will be making a final decision on which LMS it will be, and we will be looking for implementation at both the middle and the high school levels. And in case there's anyone at home that just isn't really sure what that is, it's a system that our children, the vast majority of whom who go to college, they all use an LMS. So it's a way for them to access their coursework, to correspond with their teachers, to submit assignments. It's a way at the K-12 level, especially for parents to have a one-stop shop to log into this system and be a lot more user-friendly than today's is. So knowing that we always have that obligation and that moral responsibility to prepare our students for what comes next, an LMS implementation is something that is something that we have to do. It's not a nice to do. This budget also includes the reinstatement of a supervisor of special education position. We made significant cuts to special education. As some of you will recall, 3 years ago, one of those reductions was at the administrative level. We pulled it together since then, but it has not been easy to do so. And adding this position will be right-sizing that department from an administrative standpoint. The next issue is a good budget increase for us, and that is our professional staff substitute fill rates. Last year at this time, whenever we had a professional absence, only 62% of those absences were being filled by a qualified day-to-day substitute. So the other 38% were falling on our teachers who were free at the time to step up and supervise those classes. That's 62% last year. Compared with year-to-date this year, we're at 91%. So from 62% to 91%, we changed companies. We have someone on site. Ms. Taylor, our Director of Human Resources, has been the catalyst behind that work. So congratulations and thank you to you. And so obviously when you're filling more subs, you got to pay more subs. So that piece is built into the budget as well. And then the last piece that I would mention is that we are implementing a timekeeping system for our support staff. It's in pilot phase right now. We will be expanding that in the months and as we get into next year to come. And that is really to bring us into compliance with the Fair Labor Standard Act. So it's something that we should do as a best business practice, and it's also something that we must do from a compliance standpoint. So those are some highlights just to give you a big picture of what is in the budget. And then Mr. Stone, if you wouldn't mind setting a little bit better perspective for us.
Certainly. So the revenue budget, the first draft for 2019-20 comes in at $242.4 million. The expenditure side of the budget, $249.2. So that creates a deficit of approximately $6.8 million. So the work will now begin to find adjustments on both sides of the budget, revenue and expenditures, to bring that deficit to what is a more acceptable level for the administration and the board. One item that Dr. Frazier did not mention, and it's in the same vein as charter school. This is something that this school board and administration have no control over, and that is contributions to the state retirement system. That rate is mandated by the state. The contribution rate for the upcoming year will be 34.29%. So that means almost 35 cents on every dollar of salary goes to fund the retirement system. It's an increase to our budget of $1.7 million for the upcoming year. So before we add any of those things or maintain any of those programs that Dr. Frazier mentioned, we have to make that contribution off the bat. So I just wanted to highlight that for the board. Two just timeline items. 76% of our budget is around staffing. So at our April Finance Committee meeting, we will have a discussion with Ms. Taylor about staffing and what's comprised of that budget. And then we also have the budget forum right before the April board meeting. And then the final budget, as Dr. Frazier mentioned, set for approval May 30th.
And I do want to jump in here real quickly once again to say that yes, this year the board did vote to reserve the right to take the Act 1 exceptions. Nothing has changed in that regard. That was a decision that was made very early on in this process. I think it was in January. Again, the budget isn't improved until the end of May. We are working very, very hard as a school board and as a cabinet team and with our full administrative team to ideally not need to use any of those exceptions. So know that. Again, we're a couple months away from the finish line at this point, but we're very mindful of needs that we have, and we're also very mindful of the impact on our homeowners and residents and Council Rock community members. So we will continue to do our due diligence and reach the very best place that we can, both as a board and as administration.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Frazier. Mr. Stone. I want to say before we move on to the vote, well, first of all, our next meeting, as Mr. Stone said, is April 11th at 7 p.m. at the room across the hall. So this is Mr. Stone's first meeting as our new Director of Business Administration, and your second meeting. Bob wasn't here last time. That's right. I apologize for that. But Bob Reinhardt, who was here for 8 years, thank you, did the Irish goodbye of retirements last week, right? So he would not allow any discussion while he was here. He would not allow a lunch in his honor. He would not even allow a beer after work. So we want to thank Bob for his service. He did a great job for the employees and residents and students at Council Rock. And I want to thank you, Bob. I know you're probably not watching. I'm sure you're watching basketball right now. But the message is out there. So thank you for everything you've done. Okay, with that, I move to approve the consent agenda items B through E as contained in this agenda.
Second.
Thank you for that. I do have one comment. I don't want to rehash the meeting that we had, but I did want to note, hopefully, Mr. Tate, I'm not stealing your thunder. Mr. Rowe made a large presentation on adjustments to our transportation policy.
That
And
was
we've had conversations, across this board on distances to bus stops that were significantly longer than they could be, and bus ride times that were significantly longer than they could be. And what I'm talking about are the state mandates that were part of our policy. So we made some significant improvements there. Anybody who's interested in understanding specifically what those are, feel free to watch the replay. I was really happy that we were able to do that. So that's actually one of the items in the consent agenda. Are there any questions?
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, no worries. Any
I
other
would
questions
just,
or comments?
I would just, let's use this forum to let parents know that it's very likely the bus stops are going to move. So don't assume anything in the fall. We might as well start now telling people, so.
Yeah.
We have a communication plan just about ready to go.
Cool, great. Awesome. So if there's no objections, I'll ask the secretary to note that the motion passes with unanimous consent. That brings us to personnel items F and G. And Mr. Hidalgo, if I could ask you to read those two together, please.
I move to approve the personal actions contained in the attachment of this agenda, both F and G.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Thorward. Any questions? Anything of note to call out here? Ms. Haley? Okay. Hearing no objections, I ask the secretary to note that the motion passed with unanimous consent. And Mr. Salomon, I'd ask you to read item number H, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Block. I move to approve bid number 19-1313, Cisco Catalyst 4500X and networking accessories at a cost not to exceed $189,039, subject to an audit.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Tate. Is there anything we need to know, Dr. Fraser or Ms. Frederickson? Okay, any questions? Objections? Hearing none, I'd ask the secretary to note that item passed with unanimous consent. Mr. Tate, how about a policy committee update?
Thank you for talking about the transportation policy change. I appreciate you bringing that up. I think our transportation department is marvelously managed and making incremental changes on a continual basis. So they're to be commended. And they serve the district well. Policy committee, we have no policies for consideration tonight. Our next meeting is this coming Monday, March 25th.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Dr. Thor, we'll move to the facilities committee, please.
Thank you. The facilities committee met March 7th. Our next meeting will be April 4th. Of note, a lot of things we do discuss are energy management and whatnot, so that's nothing new. We did go over the Rolling Hills addition and renovations project and the details of where we are with that. And you'll see a board item on that tonight. We got an update on the Wrightstown Elementary School additions and renovations. That's going along just fine and right on schedule. I'll say it so Doug doesn't have to. We're right on schedule. We did talk a little bit about a couple of additions to the capital improvement plans for the summer. The one I'd like to note is, because we've been talking about security, is this building is going to get some security upgrades as well. We do have staff here. It's important. And so one of the capital improvements for this summer will be some security enhancements here. Mr. Taylor, before we go through this, do you want to do the consent or do you want to talk about the Rolling Hills? I'm real pleased with what you managed to do. Let's do the consent first. Okay. Hang on a second. I move to approve consent agenda items B through C as contained in this attachment.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Salomon. Are there any questions for Mr. Taylor? Any objections? Hearing none, I have the secretary note the motion passed with unanimous consent, and with that, we'll move to letter D.
Yeah, let me make the motion first. Yeah. I move to approve credit change order MC-001 in the amount of $150,000 to Tri-County Mechanical Incorporated for the Rolling Hills Elementary School additions and renovations project.
I'll second that.
Take it away.
Yeah, so when we received the bids, while the bids were favorable and we were under budget, we did have some concern with the square foot cost of mechanical specifically. So Dewey Engineering and myself took a look at the drawings, reached out to the controls manufacturer, to the equipment manufacturer, to the mechanical contractor and said, hey, what can we potentially do here to try to bring this back closer to where we would have expected. And we were, as a team, able to identify specifically spring isolators that are in the equipment that are also in the roof curbs, and there was some redundancy in some of that equipment and expensive equipment as well. So with it being a concrete roof structure, we moved the spring isolators to the equipment. They're the same type of isolator that would have been in the curb, so we're not compromising quality or quantity. We're simply getting the same function at a lesser cost. So we were able to find a $150,000 credit back from the mechanical contractor to make these changes. So we're, feeling better about that square foot cost.
I will just note that it's really nice to see the team work and find, it's a big project. This is a big number. Some would argue in the whole scheme of things, it's not that big, but every little bit helps. And we managed to save some money and maintain functionality because people were looking, which is important as we move forward.
Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, I note the motion, the secretary note the motion passed with unanimous consent. And with that, we're done with most of the agenda. I know that Mr. Bialik has some new business, but before we get to that, is there any old business? Mr. Bialik, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. I actually have just a couple of things. Did I mention I don't like the new agenda? Multiple pages.
It's already stumped me a couple times.
Oh, goodness.
You got to be on your game. You can't print it. It changes.
Two things before I get it. I want to talk about the a budget subcommittee discussion we had, but I want to point out again that the Council Rock Education Foundation received its largest check so far in the most recent history of this organization, probably in the history of the organization. And we have to give Gail Costa almost all the credit for that. I don't know if she solicited that donation, but we keep seeing these large checks that aren't just large in size, but in denomination that keep coming in front of us. And it's really, really wonderful, wonderful. She's put together great events. I've just thrown some pebbles of ideas to her, and suddenly it's a big event. It's happening. So she's a real asset to this district and that organization, and it's a great partnership organization. I was also happy to hear about an update about the Achieve program. I'm looking forward to some updates about our real estate search from the LSAC programs and how we're going to relocate these children and what how those programs will be housed and the beneficial nature for the kids. So I might be prodding that as we move forward in our meetings here, but it's very, very important. So we had a discussion at our Finance Committee meeting a few weeks ago about some long-range projections for our budget. So over the past few years, we've had 5-year projections from our budgets to help us decide what direction we're heading in and how to vote for our budget. And it's very, very helpful. Mr. Stone let us know that there's some software that he wants to be introducing to help us more to understand our trajectory as far as incoming revenues and outgoing expenses. And my concern continues to be higher expenses, maybe static or lower revenues. And there's a lot of work we do on committees. There's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes, but something I've wanted to talk about for some time has been bringing in some members of the community to help us in some kind of capacity to work with the administration, work with the board to help understand what we can do to have a positive effect on our budget and maybe come up with some ideas that we are just not thinking of. I approached the topic with Dr. Frazier and Mr. Stone and some other members of the board. And of course, we talked about it at our last finance meeting. The direction from the members of the last finance meeting was to form a small subcommittee of the board for a very minimal conversation or just a more casual conversation about if it makes sense to move forward with this and to bring the findings back to the board. And that committee consisted of Mr. Block, Ms. Brooks, and myself, and we had a telephone conference with Mr. Stone and Dr. Frazier. And we came up with some key points, and I'd like to present it for, do we want to have discussion on this tonight a bit, or do we just want to kind of plant the seed and have discussion later?
Probably, let's let folks ask questions for clarity, but let it sink in for a little while, and we come back to it.
So at first, we talked about goals, and I'm just going to read the notes from the goals. So we're looking at to explore areas outside of current Council Rock practice and get feedback and ideas from experts or other entities. Analyze current Council Rock practices and suggest areas of improvement. As far as context, we look inward and outward. So what can we do internally to affect expense, revenue, budgeting, whatever the case may be, to put us on a perhaps a more positive foothold moving forward. Seek expertise from outsiders, look for opportunities to improve, and help the community perhaps understand the budget process, our limitations, some of our abilities, and then we focus on process. We need, of course, to educate the committee. If there's a committee of residents formed, educate the committee on public education budgeting, prioritize the objectives for the committee, and how it will do its work effectively. As far as the role is very, very important because we know that we can't abdicate our responsibility to make decisions about really anything to anyone. This is our job. Buck kind of stops here. So the role, of course, is advisory in nature. We've got to be very, very clear about that role with the committee, with the community, and amongst ourselves. The committee would make non-binding recommendations to the administration and the board can implement all, none, or come up with different recommendations on their own. Right? Okay. As far as composition of the committee, we talked about many different options, and we decided amongst ourselves that the smaller is probably better. We're looking for a range of 3 to 5 individuals, and I think we probably have some real talent in this community around us, our Council Rock community. But 3 to 5 individuals. Now, we may be looking to add flex members who would serve as subject matter experts, so perhaps that could grow to 7, giving specialties. For instance, Ms. Thomas always had some great insight on what's that? Healthcare. Yeah, medical healthcare. So I'm not suggesting that we pull her in at all. I'm just saying that's an example. And what, as far as selection of the members, we thought that we would start asking for resumes, put that information out sooner than later, and Dr. Frazier and Mr. Stone would review the resumes at first, and then bring it to the committee and to the board for selection. Timeline. So we're right in the middle of the budget process right now. We don't want to upset that apple cart. We believe that we can start putting the information out there to accept the resumes, start asking for feedback from, of course, the board, and asking for people who might be interested. But we wouldn't want to put the committee together or start its work until well after the budget process, this year's budget process. But we want to give them enough time to potentially make a difference going into next year. So we're probably looking at a start, would you say August, September timeframe? Yes. Okay. We would want applications due in early June, and we'd want to approve those applications as a target at the June 20th board meeting. And actually, we have a note here, the committee work could begin in July. So that's the notes that I have from our discussion. Thank you for putting those together. And I'm going to just open it up to Denise and Andy if there's any other comments, anything.
No, it was a good discussion. I think it warrants more across the board. So we'll schedule that at a committee meeting, or we'll make it a discussion item here. But I think the important part was, it's going to take some time to get the word out, to get applicants, to vet those applicants, to discuss them, to onboard that group. And, we were kind of struggling with the current budget year and, kind of when things start. The summertime is a great time to be able to work on things like this. So we've got a good bit of time to engage in a more specific conversation about how we do this. But assuming it's probably not a bad idea to forward that list to the gang, and then we'll schedule a follow-up call just to nail things.
The outline, you're saying?
Yeah, the outline. And then that way, we can have a discussion and finalize that timeline. Most importantly, I think it's about getting the word out there that we're soliciting, community input, provide some kind of framework around what we're looking for and how they operate. So the resumes or the applicants can start coming in. we can still be figuring out exactly how we're going to pick them and what's a good, one of those are coming. So it was a good conversation. And, you know, for me, I struggle with committees and how many we do. And, you know, we have a group of high paid individuals that are out there, but, you know, what was most important to me was hearing that the value that Dr. Frazier and Mr. Stone thought that could bring to them, which was great. So I think we're going in the right direction.
I'll just say that, I mean, we did talk about the appreciation of just having a different lens, different perspective. We don't know. We're so used to looking at the way we look at it. And the other thing is that in the discussion about trying to keep the group small, it was not really in an effort to just say, you know, we don't want everybody, whatever. But from a practical sense, in terms of scheduling meetings, being productive, being able to actually create action items based on these goals and keep it smart and tight and focused on the work, it's just a more productive thing. I mean, we have that in our own lives. Like, you can't have, you know, wildly, you know, groups where everybody's off in different directions. So I can definitely see that we'll, you know, start and, you know, set it up as the way we think best. And it'll be fluid to see, because if we have, you know, people with expertise in something that develops as a priority, we want experts. But that was just the rationale for that part of the conversation.
I think it's great. And I'm glad you said this, Andy. I'll just note, when I contacted Dr. Frazier, he was very much on board with this idea. Seemed very excited about it. Mr. Stone was the same way. They had their cautions. I'm concerned about starting it too early. We don't really want to jump into it right now, and that's all very, very valid. But we wouldn't be recommending this or discussing this without the support of the administration, because we don't want to make their job harder. We just want to give them more resources.
Excellent. And thanks for driving that agenda, Mr. Pilot. So is there any other board comment? New business? Okay, we'll go to our last round of public comment. We've got 3 folks out there, all looking like they want to talk.
Who's first?
All right. With no further comment, any other comments from the board? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. So we go.